Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos Podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartagone, ZP002. Back with me on my show is my co-host, Jamie Franks. Jamie, the Senior Chief, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here as always, man. I look forward to these. I say that every time, but it's true.
I do. You know what? I do too. And as I start to, we start to schedule these out, and obviously it's no secret that these are pre-recorded and they're not live by the time we launch these. Which, if you're new to the show or just not paying attention, we put these out every Thursday, and we get a lot of feedback usually on Thursday when the members hear it, because I see it shared on all of the ZERT pages. So as I start to schedule these out, and I make sure that we have one with you and I have one that's out there with Paul. I have a couple of other guests that are coming in. We've had a couple other guests. Obviously, we've had Rocco on. We've had Larry from Missouri, who had some great information when it came to comms. Tess is coming on, Tess, competitive shooter Tess.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to be on next week. We're going to do a little show with her. She was just on a podcast and she said she loved it. So I was like, well, hey, we love new guests on the show. So, and she works for HiViz. And if you guys are aware or not aware, HiViz is an affiliate vendor or affiliate company with ZERT, and ZERT members get discounts on HiViz sites. So if you are looking for any sites in the handgun, shotgun, rifle realm, you can head over to HiViz sites and use your coupon code when you check out. So I know a couple of members have taken advantage and enjoyed that one. So just a little bit of admin here at the top of the show. But today's show is kind of a continuation. But before we get into today's show, I want to talk with you real quick. Now, by the time this airs, Halloween will probably have already come and gone.
No.
I know, we hate it. But I just saw you had a couple of exciting costumes at your Halloween party, your annual Halloween party, right?
Yeah, so growing up, I for whatever reason, I don't know. That's like asking somebody why they like vanilla instead of chocolate. But
right, I thought you were about to say I grew up in a middle class family, and I was about to end the show. No.
Okay. For whatever reason, however, whyever, Halloween is my favorite episode. It has nothing to do with glorifying the occult or worshiping the devil or anything. It was just when I was a kid, Halloween was like always the funnest stuff and the funnest time for me. And some of my fondest memories of when I was a kid were Halloween stuff. Like my kind of by accident, I was staying at a hotel with my parents one time when I was about 5 or 6, and there was like this big, huge, massive costume party going on in one of the banquet rooms, and like that's one of the most vivid memories I have of when I was a little kid. And then when I was probably about, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade, so 9 or 10 years old, I went to another big costume party. And then when I was a kid, I always looked forward to the Halloween episodes of Roseanne and Home Improvement and King of the Hill and the Halloween episodes of the Cosby Show, stuff like that. And so like as an adult, I've always wanted to recreate that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a pretty good job. I think I've created a Halloween party here at my house that would be like I turned my garage into a haunted dungeon, and then my living room and kitchen and dining room are all spooky, and I have various like classic horror movies playing, and
that's great.
We have food and drink, and my only requirement is that everybody that comes has to wear a costume. You can't be the guy that's too cool to wear a costume.
Yeah.
Long ago in my past, I dated a girl who, in her past, had been a Hooters waitress, and so I used to have the Hooters girl waitress uniform. I used to have it like on a hanger, and I would say, and it had a sign on it that said like anybody that showed up.
That didn't show up. That's great.
Regardless, I don't care what your body type is, how big or small you are. If you show up without a costume, you either have to put this on or leave. But I think Dan Connor or Tim the Tool Man or Hank Hill would be proud to come to my party. It really, and it started kind of I guess the catalyst that finally made me start doing it. I'd wanted to do it for many years, but in COVID, during COVID-19 shutdowns, like all things Halloween were shut down. There were no haunted houses. There were no Halloween
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah.
I go to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights every year, and that was canceled that year. So I was like, well, screw that. I'm doing my own thing. And so that first party, that first year during COVID, was kind of, it was still a good party, but it was kind of thrown together with stuff that I just happened to have around the house. And it's grown a little bit every year since then, and now it's pretty good. And now I have a group of return guests that look forward to it every year. And honestly, again, um, this has nothing to do with the religious aspects or anything, but like my Halloween party is the thing that I look forward most to every year. I look forward more to my Halloween party every year than I do Christmas morning. So,
Well, I mean, listen, I obviously, I don't, you keep mentioning that occult thing. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm not paying attention to social media, and there's people out there crying about what Halloween means. And Halloween to me has always just been a fun
yeah,
holiday. It's not, I
100%.
mean,
So,
it's
my,
not like you're not running around to 800 different houses for, to go eat this, eat that. I mean, you are, but it's fun for trick or treating. I mean, you're not going and spending the day with family. I mean, I know for me growing up, Christmas was the longest day ever because it was stop 1, stop 2, stop 3, stop 4, stop 5. And you're just like worn out. Halloween's just fun. And much like
yep.
you, for me, it became fun. It became even more fun later in life when I got roped into being an actor, if you will, in a haunted house.
No, I've done
And
that too. That's awesome.
dude, so one of your videos that you had, there was a guy that showed up in as Michael Myers, and that was me. Like that was my thing. That the guy that I worked with, and we're way off topic, but it's Halloween time, so it doesn't matter. A guy I worked with a long time ago, he was very much into this kind of stuff, like Halloween theater and whatnot. And he used to do, he made costumes, like he made the costumes. He didn't go buy it. He went to,
That's me, dude.
like these stores, and he made a pinhead costume, and it was like a legit, and he took a mask, he cut it apart, he made it, he put pins through the other side, put the balls on the pointy side, and he made an amazing pinhead costume. But the one that he did, and how he got me roped into these haunted houses, was he did a Beetlejuice. And dude, he spent 3.5 hours doing the makeup on Beetlejuice, and he went and had the exact costume, and he did the voice. He was great. And I was like, okay, I want in. And he, all he had was a Michael Myers mask. And I was like, all right, I got the blue one-piece Dickies mechanic suit. And the thing that made it even better is I had like boots with like a little bit of lift on it. So I was standing like 6'3", and the whole shtick was he was in character the entire time. And for 2 seasons, no, I don't know if it was 2 or 1, I never took my mask off. Nobody knew who I was that worked at the haunted house, except for the one guy who put it on. And I had so much fun that year. Like every actor that was there had a role that they had to play. They had a spot that they had to be in. We did not. We were allowed to do whatever and roam and whatnot. And dude, when I tell you, like they had these hallways made of like black plastic sheets and strobe lights. And I found every corner underneath the strobe light so you could not see me. They came around the corner blinded. Oh boy, they had to shut it down twice to put the walls back up because I came out from underneath as Michael Myers, and this lady turned around and ran right through the wall, just ripped it right down. Oh, it was so fun. But anyway, I know that we got off topic there, but I mean, Halloween is great, is awesome. I love it. It's a fun time.
You did bring up one point about the family aspect that, but like for me, Halloween is also a family aspect. It's my daughter loves it too. She's a teenager now. This is the first year that she and I haven't done a group costume. Like she and I have always done like a themed costume together. And like you said, I'm the guy. I make all of our costumes. I don't even remember the last time I purchased a Halloween costume, but like I start in like July gathering supplies and making our costumes. That's why our costumes are so awesome.
Okay.
Way better than anything you can get at Spirit Halloween. But the thing I kept, the reason I kept referencing like the religious aspect of it, I guess, is because I dated a girl one time that like Halloween was completely foreign to her because
Really?
her parents had told her that like celebrating Halloween at all in any shape or form was like devil worship. And
Wow.
so I like
Aggressive.
she had never been exposed to any of the Halloween stuff that I love. And because her parents had she like never once as a kid had she gone trick-or-treating or anything. So
Wow.
I just didn't want anybody to think like because I enjoy Halloween a little bit more than I enjoy Christmas that I'm like
Well, I don't
that
think
I
that's the
don't love
case, but
Christ or something,
no,
but
geez. Oh man, I hope I hope we don't have listeners out there like that, because that would make this not as fun anymore. But anyway, well, listen, we always like to catch up after a minute. You and I, we do talk often, and I know
yeah.
that we just talked about this, but we want to let our listeners out there know that there's fun stuff happening, and we like to engage in that, and not always just sometimes we haven't done one of these shows in a while, but we were for a minute there we were discussing all of the doom and gloom. And I mean,
Yeah.
at the time of this recording, we are a week and a half, 2 weeks out from the election.
I
So by
think
the
as
time,
of the recording today, I believe we are 14 days out from the
yeah,
election.
so by the time this recording probably airs, we'll either be able to figure out if we're going to be able to afford groceries, or we're getting involved in World War III. You just don't know. I hope that if you are listening to this and it is after the show, that everybody got out there and voted. And if this does somehow air before it, get out there and vote. But that leads us into our topic of today, which is actually a part 2 from a previous show. We talked about some watches, and we talked about them from a different perspective. I mean, we talked about it from a collector, from a guy who's loved watches since he was a kid, that you and me as well. I mean, I was just always told that you wore a watch. I mean, it was a thing that my father had talked to me, and I got my first watch, and my first pocket knife, and that was it. And as watches evolved, and like we talked about in the last show, we got to a point where you've got an analog watch, you've got a digital watch, but now these digital watches go a step above, if you will, or a step past just being a digital watch, to now they are digital tool watches, as you referred to them in the last show. And what I think we both realized at the end of that show is we could go down a complete rabbit hole on how these digital tool watches are used for everyday life, but also in a survival type situation. And I think we wanted to expand a little bit more on that. Would you say that's probably a...
Yeah, for sure. Like, we talked about, like, I don't know. Let me think. I probably do. I was about to say, I wonder if I know anybody that doesn't wear a watch. And nobody's jumping to mind, but I bet I do. Cause,
I do.
because maybe some people just think of a watch as like an accessory, a piece of jewelry or whatever. But like in the part 1 of this, the first episode where we were talking about watches, we pointed out like actual real world application for why you would need and would want a watch in a survival situation or preparedness situation, and why it's just it absolutely is a tool for your everyday carry. Like, I mean, I count my watch as part of my everyday carry.
Yeah.
And maybe some people don't, but if you're one of those people that just thinks a watch is just again, like a costume accessory or whatever, it's not. And there's
it's so much not that. It's
yeah.
the only thing in my everyday carry that I have on me all the time. I wear my watch.
That is a fantastic point there, Christopher.
Yeah.
My watch is on my wrist 24 hours a day, and nothing else that I would consider my EDC is. You're that's 100%.
And so, and where I'm going with that, and the reason why, and you and I have kind of talked about this, but I remember you having a different thought process as I did. I keep mine on because I like data. I like to track data. I love to track my sleep. I love to know what my sleep score is that it gives me on the Garmin. The Garmin does track it better than the Apple Watch does. obviously I track my steps. I track, my workouts. When I go for a walk outside, I take Stella out. I make sure that I hit that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not the guy going for a run all the time, but I do track that stuff. And I can access a lot of information right off the bat. I can look at it without looking at my phone to know what the weather is now going to be and the weather conditions for the next few hours. I can tell you right off the bat if I'm facing northwest, east, or south. I mean, all that.
Yep.
I can know what my how many feet above sea level I am, all with just looking at my wrist. And I think that's crucial. But I think at one point you said, you shouldn't let those numbers control things in your life. And that might have been something a little bit different, but I believe you had said that. And
yes.
I don't know.
A guy I know, if his watch told him that he was tired, he would be like, "Oh man, I'm so tired. I need to go take a nap. My watch is telling me my body battery is at 5." And so it's like, what's is that placebo effect? Is that what that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be
power of suggestion, whatever you. But but I think if he didn't have that smartwatch on his wrist telling him that he should be tired, he probably wouldn't be. He probably wouldn't.
Right.
So yeah.
But I do have to tell you, I don't really understand the body battery situation here, but when I look at my sleep schedule after I've woken up and it says, like, for example, 2 weekends ago, I went camping and I think I got 43 minutes of REM and I was smoked later that day. I mean, I knew it. I felt it. Now, did I feel it because I looked at that data or did I feel it because I actually slept like shit? Who knows? But
so that would be a good experiment. Like if like you and I have talked about how I wish like Holosun or somebody would come out with a red dot optic, like just a training only red dot optic, where me as an instructor, I could have a remote control and like I could just randomly turn your dot on and off. It would be an interesting experiment if I could like pre-program your watch to tell you that on Monday your sleep score was a 98, on Tuesday it was a 64, on Wednesday it was a 72, on Thursday it was a 20, and just see if you reacted according to, if you were like, my watch says I got a 22 last night, but I actually feel pretty good, or would you buy into the suggestion, the power of suggestion that your watch told you slept bad, so now you're tired? But I don't know.
Very true. But going back to that, this is the only piece of kit that I wear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it is, like you said, a very important part of yours and definitely mine. Now, if you're not wearing a watch, are you behind the curve here on having that information? No, probably not. I mean, everybody's smartphone is connected. And that's the thing. This thing can only do so much when it's not connected to my phone. I did decide to wear my Garmin today, which is the tactics. I don't even know which number, but it's the AMOLED one. So it's very bright. It's very vibrant in colors. It does have a lot of information. Now, I did also bring the Apple Watch for comparison. And what's funny is the Apple Watch has not been on my wrist in a few days. And I took it off the charger 2 days ago and it is still sitting at 20%. So it does get a little bit more. And that was one of the things that we discussed in the last episode about my main issue with the Ultra Watch, the Apple Watches, is their battery life. Now, again, because it hasn't been on a wrist, it hasn't been doing anything, it hasn't been tracking anything, and it hasn't been downloading notifications, it's lasted for a little bit longer. If I put that on, that 20% battery would probably be gone in about 30 minutes because it would start picking up all of the notifications and everything else and start tracking health stats. So
let's see. So I also have, these are just some of the ones I brought, some of my G-Shocks here. And then this one is the Garmin. This is my Garmin Phoenix 5X that has been like the Energizer Bunny, has just kept going and going and going. And same thing to your point. I think the last time I charged this one was the last time I taught a shooting class, because I normally wear this one to the range, and that's been a few weeks ago now, and it's still at 90%. So
Now, the G-Shock watches that you held up, are those digital tool? And I guess we need to discuss that term, right?
Yep.
What classifies a watch out of the digital watch into a digital tool watch?
So a tool watch is just I honestly don't know when that term originated, but it goes back to like when Navy SEALs and Special Forces and stuff like that, as part of becoming one of those special people in one of those special units, you would get issued a watch because your watch was a tool that you needed as a professional soldier, special operator, whatever. And so those tool watches were like certain models of Seiko, like the Seiko like 6309s and like the Seiko, I think it's like 7580, like the Rolex Submariner, the Tudor Submariners. I knew a guy when I was at the SEAL team. I knew a guy that had told me a story when he was a new guy, because the government pays for all this stuff, right? Like the government wasn't just handing you a Rolex and now it's yours. It was an issued item, and therefore you were financially responsible for it, and it would need to be turned back in. But anyway, it's accountable and inventoryable, if that's a word.
Right.
But you could, like, the Navy couldn't issue me a Rolex and me sell it on eBay. I would get in big trouble for that, because it doesn't belong to me. It's issued to me.
Got it.
So for government accountability purposes and everything, like, he told me the story about when he checked into the SEAL team, and the SEAL team was no longer procuring Tudor Submariner watches, and they weren't issuing them anymore. And like all the ones that had been turned back in, uh, you know, they weren't allowed to go home with anybody, so they couldn't just give them out to the guys and be like, just take these home. They couldn't send them back to Tudor. Tudor didn't want them.
Right.
They couldn't, like, and so the team just had to get rid of them just to get them off the inventory rolls. And so one of his first tasks as a new guy at the SEAL team, they sent him out back with a hammer, and he had to like smash all these, multi-$1,000.
Wow.
Now they would be very valuable because they were the Tudor. We call them a mil sub, the military submariner. He smashed them all with a hammer, and like, if you smash a bunch of watches into bits and you just take the parts back to supply, is supply really going to know? Is there 11 watch? Or do these parts add up to 11 watches or only 10?
Slippery slope.
I told him, like, one of those would definitely, maybe this makes me a bad person, but one of those would definitely have gone into my pocket. And he's like, yeah, but because I was a new guy and they made me do this, I felt like they were testing me. And so I felt like somebody was watching me. He's like, so they told me to do it. And he's like, I'm telling you, like, my hand on the Bible, I smashed every one of those watches to smithereens and turned them all back in. Like, one of them did not find its way into my pocket. But anyway, so that's back then the military would issue these really rugged analog watches, because that's all that was available back then. Back then, like, the digital watches that were available during those eras were like really cheap and really delicate. But a Rolex Submariner or a Tudor Submariner or a Seiko, they were really tough, rugged watches that were that had sapphire crystals that were nearly indestructible and still are,
Right.
and rated to 100 meters of waterproofness, water resistance. And they were these rugged tool watches that special operator, like, you can look up pictures of special ops soldiers in Vietnam that have a Rolex or a Tudor or a Seiko on their wrist. And really all the way up to September 11th, that was still kind of the standard. It started going away a little bit before that, but it really became noticeable once the global war on terror started. And these watches, like the G-Shock, I'm probably going to talk a lot about the G-Shock because I around this era, the 9/11 era, is when I really became a massive fan of the G-Shock, because that's when I got issued my first G-Shock. And so then those started to become known as digital tool watches, because that's kind of the time period when the durability and ruggedness and everything of digital watches had really stepped up to match how tough and rugged those Rolexes and Tudors were, but a G-Shock costs much, much, much less than
Well, yeah,
a
it does.
Rolex, you know.
And I guess that's why I was trying to figure out what constitutes it or what makes it a tool watch, and does it sit in the same arena as like a Garmin watch or an Apple Watch Ultra
So
or a Suntono or what is it? Is it
Sunto.
Sunto? Because I know that, and you can probably answer this. The G-Shock, what does it do besides keep time and give you probably a stopwatch or slash a timer, a date? Does it give you anything more than that, like temperature? Or
no, so
okay,
man, this is all the stuff I was hoping we could talk about today. So
yeah,
you know, a G-Shock is to be considered or classified as a G-Shock. I forget the guy's name, but he was a Japanese guy that like invented this concept. Actually, after seeing one of his the story goes like his kid had some toy and the kid dropped it, and like he figured the toy was going to break, but it didn't, and he was like, well, wait a minute, let me look at that. How did this not break? And then that gave him the idea to ruggedize a digital watch, which up to that point had never been done. And so he came up with this criteria that all G-Shocks still have to meet, and so he wanted to set out to build a watch that they called it the 10-10 criteria. The watch had to be able to survive a 10-meter fall. So drop it from 10 meters onto a hard surface. It had to survive the fall. It needed to be waterproof to 10 atmospheres, which is 100 meters, which is 330 feet. And then it needed to have a 10-year battery life. So that was the 10-10. 10-meter fall, 10 atmosphere, waterproof, and a 10-year battery life. And so, so then the G-Shock was born. And so to answer your question, the just like a G-Shock watch, like there's only been 4, I think, up to this point where we are in history. There have only been 4 that actually have a NSN, a national stock number, or a NATO stock number. And I've been issued all 4 of the G-Shocks that had the NSN. I have 2 of them right here, and then 2 of them are down in my garage. But you know, like a Rolex Submariner or a Tudor Submariner, or you know, the Seikos I referenced earlier, really they can tell you the time, the date, and then it has the rotating bezel like this one,
right?
And so the rotating bezel basically functions as a timer, whether that's a dive timer or that's what it's intended for. But you could use it as a timer for anything by rotating the bezel, and then it'll track the elapsed minutes. But you know, a G-Shock watch like this one, like this is the first one I was ever issued when I was at the SEAL team. I told that story on the last podcast. I think it's a pretty funny story. Because I showed up to the team wearing the Luminox Navy SEAL watch, and they all clowned me and said, well, this is the real Navy SEAL watch, and they got me this one. Excuse me. Oh. So this watch tells the time. It also can tell a second time zone or a dual time zone. That can be GMT or whatever time zone you want to set the other time zone to. It has a stopwatch, a countdown timer. What else does it have? An alarm, 2 alarms, and that's really it. But that's far more functionality than a Rolex or a Seiko or anything like that would have been. And so if you're the type of special forces guy that's a diver, you know, this is a G-Shock is absolutely diveable. It has a stopwatch, which is a timer that counts forward. It has a timer, which is a timer that counts down to 0. An alarm, a dual time zone, and 2 alarms if you wanted to set an alarm, or 2. But a G-Shock it doesn't have any GPS functions. It doesn't receive anything. It doesn't transmit anything. It's completely, the new term is whether a watch is hackable or trackable. So one of the things you were talking about is, does it do anything else? And like one of the other things kind of in the wake of GWAT, or, you know, post 9/11, now you see a lot of watches, digital watches, that they're advertised as being triple sensor or ABC. And that means it's still just all the ones that I know of that fall into that category. It has the altimeter, so that's the A, the barometer, that's the B, and a compass. And so it does all the the timekeeping functions that I just spoke about with the G-Shock, but has the added excuse me, the added capability of telling you what your altitude is, which is, in many situations very important. The
Right.
barometer, because that
Okay.
basically tells you if the weather is getting better or worse. And then obviously having a digital compass. And then a lot of them also tell, that they have now, especially as time has gone forward, they have the temperature and things like that. But most of them you'll see them referred to as triple sensor, and it's talking about that ABC. But
Got
they
it.
still don't, those ones, the ones I'm talking about, and like an example of those would be like the Casio ProTrek, the Casio Pathfinder, which I think is, you can still find them, but I think they have been discontinued, and they've basically combined the ProTrek and the Pathfinder into one. And so the ProTrek line is the one that's is the line that they're continuing with. But you can still find Pathfinder, the Sunto Core. Again, it's not connective. Meaning it doesn't have any GPS functions or like Bluetooth connectivity or anything like that. And then like the other one, this is not really a watch, but it kind of is. But I was issued one of these too. It was the Garmin Fortrex 401, which was just this tiny little.
Right.
It was a little wrist worn GPS. We would wear them we would attach them to our plate carriers most of the time. But it was about the size. If you could picture like a Zippo lighter, it was about the size of 2 Zippo lighters. And it was just GPS receive only. Like it gave you, like, you could do waypoints, and like it would guide you to, you could enter in a waypoint and it would guide you to a waypoint. But other than that, it basically just displayed your latitude, longitude, had a compass feature, and you could do waypoints and stuff. But it was also receive only and not trackable. And the reason I keep pointing that out is because I also referenced it in the last show, towards the, kind of later on in the global war on terror, when we were fighting the wars simultaneously in Iraq and Afghanistan. It came out that like all these troops that had Garmin watches and Apple watches and watches like that, watches that do connect to your phone and have Bluetooth connectivity, that are transmit and receive, they are able to be tracked. And they actually, you could go on Google and find this. They actually made very hyper accurate maps of like military bases, because the soldiers hadn't thought of it. And they were wearing their watch to the shower, and wearing their watch to the chow hall, and wearing their watch back to the barracks, and so they were effectively mapping out the bases for anybody that wanted to be able to track that. But
so okay, so now, as far as and I mean, maybe you do, the G-Shocks, they're not evolving past what you've got there, right? Or have they? Are they coming into the day and age of where they want to compete with the Garmins and do an all-in-one?
So yes and no. The G-Shocks are still, like, let me think. I don't have it. Like one of the ones that they're currently issuing, it's basically the updated version of this one. The one that I was issued at the SEAL team in the year 2000. You can get it for about $55, and it's an awesome watch. It does all the stuff that I just talked about, but now it's like, I think G-Shock, I don't know if celebrities or athletes or, celebrity endorsement or anything has anything to do with it, but like a version of the G-Shock that's like this one is roughly between $50 and $60.
Oh, wow.
But I think now,
I was not expecting that.
G-Shock has become such a, I don't know if fad is the right word, or has become like a style thing. There's G-Shocks now that go up to $1,800. So,
really?
But
wow, that's aggressive.
They still don't have the kind of what you were referring to as the smartwatch features. And G-Shocks, as far as I know, there's not a quote unquote G-Shock that has the triple sensor ABC functionality. G-Shocks still just tell time and have stopwatches and alarms and stuff like that, but they range in price from $50 to $2,000 apparently.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that, and then that basically, that's your digital. I'll just coin this phrase. That's your digital plus watch, I guess. I mean, it does the same things, but it's probably a little bit more rugged and long lasting than your basic. I don't even know if they still make just basic digital watches that you can get for $25 that are
Well,
just, they tell time, they do a stopwatch, they tell the date, and that's it. There's like 2 buttons.
well, so they do, and there's like one of the claims to fame, like the Casio claim to fame, I guess, if you want to call it that. Bin Laden wore a Casio watch, like in many of the famous
really?
pictures of Bin Laden. Because I think when people think of Osama bin Laden, like the picture that's in your mind is him wearing the camouflage jacket with the turban on his head and
Yeah.
with an AK in his hand. Those are kind of the more iconic photos of bin Laden. In most of those photos, he's wearing a Casio. It's the F91W Casio watch. Those watches, they're still available today. I think I think that version of that watch came out in like, it was either 86 or 96.
Okay.
But you can still get it today. It still looks exactly the same. It costs $25. And also, recently, for anybody that keeps up with this kind of stuff, recently it was like it made a little bit of news and a little bit of noise that like the first females had graduated from Ranger School, or the first females had graduated from Special Forces selection, or whatever it was.
Okay.
But there's the photo, like there was only like 1 or 2 photos that came out of those ladies that made it through the whatever selection that was, but they were wearing that same watch, that Bin Laden watch, the Casio F91W, and that watch is still available today for $25. And it's
that's amazing.
A rugged watch,
Okay. And so as we look past that, and I guess if I have to sit here and think about the question or the statement that you made earlier, like, okay, I don't know how many people that I know don't wear a watch.
Yeah.
And I go back and I think to myself, okay, I don't know anybody who is they're either wearing some form of analog watch, whatever that may be, whether it's, low end, mid, up to a timepiece, or they're wearing some form of smartwatch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know many people. I think the people I think there's 2 small demographics in the watch world, if you will.
Yeah.
And the small one is doesn't wear a watch or only wears a basic digital watch. I think it's either,
like from the 1960s and kind of, I think, up through the 80s, there was a trend or like, from a section of people that were like, if you were wearing a watch, you were like the man. You were like you were a slave to the time and punching a time clock and wearing
really?
a business, well, because there's what is it Easy Rider, where at the end of the movie, the guy he famously, like, it's the closing scene of the movie, the guy on the motorcycle, he takes his watch off and just throws it away and drive, because time, he no longer has to care what time it is, because he's a free spirit and a biker that's going to just roam the country on a motorcycle, and so time is irrelevant. But if you wore a watch on your wrist, it meant you were like a stiff or a suit or or whatever. So I don't know how much of that still exists, because I do think
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, that's, you've never seen that? I think it's Easy Rider. At the end of the movie, he famously, famous scene.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't realize that was a kind of I guess maybe a common thought process or movement at the time.
Well, I know, like hippies, like, because if you wanted to be a hippie and your dad wore a business suit to the office and a watch, and you hate your dad, so you're not going to wear a watch or whatever,
Right. Okay. So, hey, everyone's entitled to what they like, and we don't judge here. If you like Grateful Dead music and like to dance to 25-minute songs, more power to you. There's some good stuff out there, and I'm all set with that. But again, if you don't want to wear a watch because you don't want to be bound by any time, it just reminds me of the girl who went viral, the snowflake millennial, whatever you want to call it, went viral because she felt that she didn't get a job because she suffered from time blindness.
Oh, yes.
and didn't, she couldn't be on time because she had time blindness. I'm like, I mean, that's a problem. But I guarantee she's on her cell phone making TikToks every couple days. So I'm sure there is like a clock there. But anyway, I digress. So you don't, and we talked about this on the last show, your daily watch is not a digital tool watch. So you are an analog guy unless you are doing something that requires all of the features and functions of your tool watch. Is that correct?
So I would say if you ran into me on the street on just a normal day, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be wearing an analog watch. It's what I like. It's what I prefer. I do prefer dive watches and tool watch, like the watch I'm wearing today. I'm holding it up for those of you that are watching this on the video format, but yes, for those of you that are not, I'm wearing my Marathon GSAR. This is the Gucciest watch that I was ever issued by the military. These retail for about $1,500. I was never fortunate enough to get a Rolex or a Tudor issued to me, but I was issued this one. This is the GSAR. It's the Government Search and Rescue, made by Marathon. They're a watch company out of Canada. But this is an automatic watch. It's a tool watch, an analog tool watch. But yeah, if you ran into me on just a regular normal day, I would probably be wearing something like this one or something like it. But I mostly wear, like my Garmin, the highest end Garmin that I have right now. Actually, it's so weird. Last night I dreamt that I went and bought the new one, so maybe that's a sign. Maybe I need to go buy the new one. But I have the Garmin Descent Mark II because I am a dive master. So anytime I'm in the water, I have my Garmin Descent on because it functions as not only as just all the smartwatch and Garmin watch and GPS watch features, but it also is actually it has been rated by many different magazines and stuff as like the #1 dive computer that's out there. So so I use that as my primary dive computer.
Okay.
And also I use my Phoenix and my Descent like to track all my fitness functions. But like you said, if I'm going for a run or going for a workout or going to ruck or whatever, I'll put that on for that and then take it off, because I have been that it has been in the back of my head more lately about being able to be tracked. And I mean, obviously anybody that's watched what's that show that all the women like to watch about the Dateline, like all the women that kill their husbands and stuff, like if you have your phone in your pocket and you commit a crime, you're going down, right? So like, because now like your phone can be tracked, like I think within like 3 feet of your location pretty much all the time. If it's I was about to say if it's powered on, but I think even now if you turn it off, I think they can still be tracked. But
sure, but I mean, my question to you then is, you kind of killed your own movement there, right? Because if you're going to be trackable whether you're wearing your watch or whether you're not because of your cell phone, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's where I was going with that. Like, so like I deliberately understand I'm shooting myself in the foot with that point that right. If I have my phone in my pocket, it really doesn't matter what's on my wrist, but it's just something that I do want to be a little bit more cognizant of. That you could be able to be tracked, and definitely with like an Apple Watch or a watch like that, but also any watch that has cell phone connectivity. That's what, like I said, going back to the Garmin Fortrex 401 that we were issued back in the day and that are still available now, by the way.
Yeah.
It receives the GPS signal only. It does not transmit anything. It has no connectivity to a computer or to a phone or anything like that. So, but anything that does is going to be able to be trackable. And yeah, like you said, if I have my phone in my pocket, then it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm trackable 24/7 with your phone. But
yeah. And hey, maybe that's the design that they want us to fall into these days, right? I mean,
yeah, we've talked about that before, that they're lulling us into this like underneath this security blanket of convenience. And meanwhile, we have shoved a leash up our ass and
pretty much. I mean, I don't even know if you can buy an analog flip phone anymore, or and I say analog, but like that like you've gotta totally go no cell phone if you don't want any of that. Now, I mean, does
I
listen, we're
think you
not gonna.
can. I think those companies like Cricket Wireless and like some of those, I think like prepaid wireless phones. I mean, I guess anybody out there listening, ask your local drug dealer. But I think like any of those Cricket Wireless, like the prepaid cell phones, I think you can just get a basic like flip phone that like doesn't do anything. It might have that little what was that worm game, the snake game?
Yeah, the snake game.
It
That was a
might
great
have
game, by
that,
the
but
way.
that's
It
about
was
it.
on
You're
your
not going to play Angry
famous
Birds on it.
Nokia 8510 maybe, or
Yeah.
5910, something like that. Obviously with and anybody that's watched any kind of cop drama show or where they can triangulate your position, they got to ping off of 3 towers, who knows. But again, it's
Well,
technology. It's only going to get more
and I don't
invasive.
know. So here's the other piece though. Like I don't know how sophisticated one would have to be. Like if I wanted to track your cell phone, I don't know how to do that. I like right now, I don't know of any way that I could track your cell phone, right? But
Right.
we've spoken about this in other episodes before about how you're voluntarily giving away your own privacy and your own personal information and possibly your own security without realizing it, because a lot of people that do wear Garmin watches and things like that, then you have it connected to your Garmin fitness app, and I just did a run today and I set a new personal record, and you share that on Facebook, or you
Right.
have your, like, now there's actually like a social media aspect to the Garmin Connect app. Like I could invite you to be my friend on the Garmin Connect
Exactly.
app, and you can see the run that I
Yeah.
did this morning, and the
Right.
run that I did yesterday morning, and the run
Yep.
that I did the day before that, and the day before that, and
Yeah.
the day before that. And now, if you wished to do me harm, you could see that I go for a run in this area every day, and
Yeah.
at approximately this time and approximately this area. And
Yeah, right.
so,
And I totally get that. But here's the thing, and I think you'll probably agree, like you can't live in that cage, right? I mean, you can't, you know,
you can't live in that cage, but I think you do need to understand that cage exists.
exactly. I agree with you 100%. Like you can't live in that kind of fear, but just understand that as much of a welcome you give to the technology that you just soak in, you are potentially giving up part of your anonymity and your freedom.
Yeah.
So just understand it. It is 1000%. It is a double-edged blade. So,
Well, there
and I,
was, and there actually is a noted, recorded case of he was a Russian submarine captain that was assassinated based on that they analyzed his workout routines that he was voluntarily uploading to the Garmin app from his Garmin watch. And when he went for a run through this park where he was known to go, an assassin was waiting for him, and they assassinated this Russian submarine captain because of his sharing of his fitness activity from his Garmin watch. So
right. So the Aesop fable here, the moral of the story is be careful what you share, but enjoy all of the features that you want. Just keep it private. You don't need a I love me wall of achievements from your
hey,
from your watch. And
and
if you do, and if you want that, just show people. You don't need to share it on the internet.
well, we have a mutual friend that's probably going to listen to this podcast, and he's going to be screaming at the radio that he knows I'm full of shit, because I do enjoy, like, again, I like using my Garmin for all the fitness applications and stuff. And I don't know, maybe I'm a girl. I love earning the little Garmin fitness badges.
Okay. Yeah.
And let me look right now. Let's see if I can do this real quick without it bogging the show down. I think out of my little network of people that I'm friends with in my Garmin app, I think I am the leader in the clubhouse of the yep.
Look at that.
Look at
You
that.
are the look at that. You're the
If you can
leader.
see, I have the number one most amount of points for my little Garmin fitness things that I've earned. But
You
so
are a nerd. You are a nerd.
I know. But yeah, so just for in the sake of transparency and honesty, I also enjoy that too. And like you said, like I don't live in fear that somebody's going to assassinate me when I go out for a ruck. But I do have an understanding that is a possibility, and it is something that can be done. And it, like, again, going back to my original point, I wouldn't know how to track your cell phone right now, but I would have an idea of how to try to gain access to your Garmin data and maybe use that if I wanted to.
Sure.
But so yeah,
but
so like, sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish.
Oh, no, so I was just gonna say, so understand the difference between like a digital tool watch and, and again, like some of those examples are the G-Shock, the Casio Pro Trek, the Casio Pathfinder, the Sunto Core, some of the receive only Garmin's, like the Garmin 4 Treks, like, any of those, you can enjoy a lot of functionality and have extra tools on your tool watch. Those things we talked about, the barometer, altimeter, compass. Some of these even have GPS connectivity, but are they hackable and trackable, and can they be exploited? And all those that I just named cannot be. And then when you choose to cross over into the Garmin smartwatches, and especially like the Apple Watches and stuff that are like paired with your phone, you are potentially opening that door. So it's just you don't have to live in fear. It's just important to understand that.
Right. No, and I agree. I mean, I love both of the smartwatches. I'm just going to go with that instead of the digital tool watches, because I think there is, now there's 3 categories. You've got analog, digital tool, and smartwatches. Just with a swipe up here, I mean, hitting, and I love the ABC, which is the altimeter, barometer, and compass on the Apple Watch. I get a lot of information right off the bat. And my biggest struggle with both of these, with all watches at this point, as we creep into that half a century mark on the timeline here, the eyes start to go, and I can barely read what's on either of these watches, much less going to an analog watch and trying to look at a little date in a little, window. And I don't care how much of a bubble of a magnifier it is, you still can't see it.
That's called a cyclops for all the watch nerds out there.
Exactly. So, being able to decipher information and get it a little bit more in depth, whether it's on your wrist or whether it's on your phone, is crucial for me, as my eyes start to go here. What I have noticed about both of my Ultra, and this is the first Apple Watch Ultra that they came out with, and I know that their newer versions have that AMOLED screen or whatever it is, the display, AMOLED display. And all that means, folks, is it's just super vibrant, super bright colors. Like if I look at an older Garmin that doesn't have it, just has a regular whatever sapphire display, it's just the color, like the oranges, the reds, they all pop. That helps for me to be able to take in the data that it's showing me. This is an important piece of my gear every day, and I probably don't use it anywhere close to its full capacity.
Oh yeah.
I know that one of our listeners, who's also one of the ZERT HQ admins, Jeremy out of Florida, he reached out after we were talking about watches on one show, because I don't even think our watch episode has aired at the time we're recording this one, but we were speaking about watches in a different episode, and it might have been our EDC episode, but he wasn't happy with the watch that he was wearing, and he asked what I carried or what I wore. The function that I use probably the most on this, as far as telling time as well as telling time and just like the little exercise thing, is the flashlight. The flashlight on this thing, and I'll turn it on here, and you can see that it's kind of glowing green, just for softness, if you will. I don't need it white LED, but I use that thing often, and it's pretty awesome. And if I could combine the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin watch to create the ultimate smartwatch, it would definitely be more Apple based, because I do like how it connects with my phone. I do like that I could wear just this Apple Watch, that's this Apple Ultra Watch. And I know that you can do this on the regular Apple Watches also, but I could just wear this out and not have to take my cell phone. And how that works also is, I mean, so if you are an avid runner or walker and you want to listen to your Spotify, you can just use your headphones connected to this thing and listen to music, and you don't need to have a phone in your pocket. Now, do I recommend that? No. Have we talked about why we don't recommend not having your phone on you? I mean, we've talked about it in numerous episodes. I mean, it is definitely a lifeline should you need it in a survival situation, and it can be used for a lot of things, a lot more than just the watch. But I mean,
Well, and I think I think one of the go-to things that people, anybody that's listening that wants to make a counterpoint, I think probably one of the first go-to things that anybody would go to is battery life. And because on your phone, like I think most people with most phones that I know of, you have to charge your phone every night while you sleep, right?
Yeah.
And like going back to those original like tool watches that I spoke of, like the Seikos and the Rolexes and the Tudors and the Omegas and the one I'm wearing, the Marathon, it's an automatic watch. It's self-winding. So it will never, as long as I'm alive and moving, it's never going to run out of battery. It's going to wind itself constantly. It's never going to run down. But that's, and we talked at like the G-Shock has a 10-year battery life, but
right.
a lot of these new, I looked it up. I think when we talked about it in the last episode, I wasn't sure, but when we said we were going to do a part 2, I looked it up. The current new version of Garmin's, because as I just said, I'm a Garmin fan, so that's what I looked at. The latest version of the Garmin's that are out, they have a battery life of 36 days, is what they're advertising. And I mean, obviously, when you use things like the flashlight, it's going to diminish the battery a little bit. And if you're using your GPS functions constantly, it's going to diminish the battery a little bit. But they're boasting an average battery, like 36 days on a single charge. And so another thing that you and I have spoken about over and over and over again is being realistic. Like, so when was the last time you went camping for 36 days? Or when was the last time there was a military operation that lasted 36 days? Or when, a survival situation that lasts 36 days, I'm probably going to die before my Garmin watch does, right? If I like 36 days is no joke. I mean, so probably this is probably most of the people who have been on the TV show Alone, if they had started with a full charge on their Garmin watch, they would have been off the island before their Garmin watch.
Before the watch. Yeah.
Now
are those,
battery life is not nearly as much of a limiting factor as it once was. If
now are those Casio watches that you were just talking about, those G-Shocks and whatnot, is the battery replaceable? Because that was obviously the other thing, right? Like you used to get the CR132s or whatever they are, the little flat batteries and you had to take the back off and replace the watch or the watch battery.
On a G-Shock, the watches are not like end user replaceable. You have to take it to a certified, like I live in San Diego, which is a pretty major US city. Yep. I only know one place in this whole city where I can take my G-Shock and have the G-Shock battery replaced.
Wow.
Because they have to, like a certified technician or whatever has to replace the battery, and then they have to test it to make sure it still maintains that 10 atmosphere waterproofness. So
got it. Yeah.
If you take it anywhere else to get the battery replaced other than a Seiko certified or Seiko authorized location, they can't guarantee the waterproofness anymore. So the couple of times, like, because this one right here, I've had this one for 11 years. I just had the battery replaced. Actually, I think I had it was about a year ago. I think it was like Halloween time last year. I took it to that place and had the battery replaced on that one. But you could probably take it to like Joe's watch shop and have the battery replaced, but they can't guarantee if it's not a Casio authorized location, they can't guarantee the waterproofness aspect anymore of the
Interesting.
G-Shock. But yeah,
Interesting.
so that's a good question. I mean, you've got 10 years to find a place to take it, but
Yeah, that's
but
right.
yeah, it does have to be, or supposed to be done by a Casio authorized person. But
Yeah. When it comes to these, and here's the other thing. Obviously, with Apple, you've got your app store for your phone, and there's an app store for your watch, and you can add all of the things that are on there. Are they all great? Are they all bad? No, I mean, they're not all great. They're not all bad. There's some that are probably very useful. I haven't added many. I drive a Ram 1500, and it's got like that Uconnect situation, so I can start my vehicle from the app on my phone from a state away. And I can also do the same thing on my watch, and I do like that. And I do like the Apple Pay on the Apple Watch system better than the Garmin Pay, and we talked about that on the last episode. But I don't add much when it comes to this. I've added a few things on Garmin as far as apps, but I can tell you that I rarely ever use them. Like looking at the. I mean, what's cool is I can tell you that tonight we'll have a waning gibbous moon. So, and that
that's good to know.
Yeah, like the moon rise is at 23:10, and it's 57%. So it's closing in on a full moon.
But
go ahead.
I don't know if you're making a joke or not, but for a person like me, that right now my job in the Navy is flying hovercrafts, and we fly at night, and we wear night vision, and as part of our mission brief, we do discuss the phase of the moon and the available lux and moonrise and moonset, because that does affect the how good or bad your NVGs are going to work. So I don't know if you're making a joke about being able to see the phases of the moon, but like for a person, there actually is a tactical application for that, because if you're a person that wears night vision goggles, that is something that you need to know. So.
Right. And as we close out this episode, I want to be I wasn't really making a joke out of it. I was just, if you are somebody who wants that, it's available to you. If you're a golfer, an avid golfer, the Garmin Approach is an amazing tool. I've got a couple of friends that do golf, and they use that watch, and it's like having a caddy on your wrist, and and Garmin also makes a rangefinder where it can connect, like you can connect your two tools, and it's like having a caddy. It'll give you the distance to the pin. You can download the golf courses, and it'll show you where the pin is versus where the tee box is. So there's a Garmin out there for everybody. If you're a runner, obviously, if you're a golfer, if you're a diver, if you're an aviator, I know that you can download the ballistics app. Garmin's got a ballistics app, and you can use that if you're doing long range shooting. And I believe there's like a digital dope card, and you can have all of that information. It's all there. Now, will I use any of that stuff or most of that stuff? No, I use this watch every day as an everyday carry piece, and I use it for the items that I've already kind of gone over. I'm not going to go download a million different things or go crazy with it, but it is my most used everyday carry item, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, I referenced it quickly. Actually, I referenced it in the last thing, but I just got through saying about the 36-day battery life, and how you've probably never gone camping for 36 days. So like most people have never gone anywhere where they couldn't charge their device for long enough for it to be an issue if the battery life is 36 days. And to your point, the longest trip I've ever been on outside of the Navy, I went to I'll just say it's a few years ago. I went to Peru for 24 days and was hiking through the Andes mountains and climbing glaciers and things like that. And all the functions of my Garmin were like, number one, it was fun for me to nerd out on it, on the data. and see the GPS track of exactly where we went and where we climbed up and where we summited and where we went down. It's fun to see all that stuff, but like, actually knowing ahead of time, looking at the map, when we go through this area, we're going to be at 18,000 feet. And when we get up to this area, this is going to be the hardest part. And it's at 21,000 feet. And like being able to look at my watch and look at the altimeter and know like how, like, okay, we're almost there. We're almost past the hard part. And then we're going to be going down. And having all of those tools at my disposal on my wrist was awesome. And, but the fact that I wear like an analog watch every day, it's just, that's mainly because it's just what I like. But I do also appreciate all the technology that's in a lot of these smartwatches. And I think we're getting ready to close it. And so like, I just thought of something while you were talking.
Sure. Yeah.
And my dad used to always say, because I think I became a Tiger Cub or a Cub Scout or whatever when I was 6. And it was about that time, around age 6 or 7, that I started carrying a pocket knife every single day. And it wasn't because I was going to get in a knife fight with the Sharks and the Jets. It was because like being a Cub Scout, like taught me the value of carrying a pocket knife. And I've had a pocket knife in my pocket pretty much every single day since I was 6 or 7 years old. But my dad used to always say like he would never hire a person that doesn't carry a pocket knife. And it wasn't the fact that the person had a knife or didn't have a knife, but a person that carries a knife, it speaks to their mindset that they know the value of having that tool at hand. Because again, I've used my knife for 10 million other things besides stabbing somebody. So it's the mindset behind, a person that knows knows the value of having that tool in their pocket. And I do think a watch speaks to that same thing. I do think, because like you said, like that, you made a fantastic point that out of all your EDC stuff, your knife, or if you carry a multi-tool, or your gun or your flashlight or whatever, the watch is the one thing that I have on me, like literally 24 hours a day. That's the only one item that I have on me for 24 hours a day. So I think that, my dad's old statement about how he would never hire anybody that doesn't carry a knife, because carrying a knife speaks to the mindset of a person that knows the value of having it. I think the same could be said for a watch. So
yeah, I agree. I don't know that I wouldn't hire it, but you definitely start to wonder. Again, who knows? If that person just doesn't like it, maybe they've got soft wrists or allergic wrists, and they can't deal with it. But it is what it is.
Well, my dad, going back to the knife analogy, my dad also, like, he's always said, like, if somebody asks to borrow his knife, his answer is always no, because if you don't understand the importance of carrying one, you're not borrowing mine.
I mean, you know what I'm about to say. I mean, somebody would ask you, "Hey, what time is it?" And what was the answer?
Half past a monkey's ass is what I always said. I don't know.
Time
to get a watch.
Time for you to get a watch.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
All right, folks. Well,
my Navy came out a little bit right there.
on that dad joke, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and sign off. And as I always say, and I end these shows every week, and I will continue to. I thank you all for spending your time with us. Please do us a favor and provide some input. Whether you do that over on YouTube or you do that on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen to the podcast, please provide us some input, ask us some questions. We love to hear that feedback. And one of these days we will do that episode once we have enough feedback on what you guys are asking and what you guys want to know. So until next time, you guys stay safe. Jamie?
That's all I got, man. It's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart. And if you're not smart, get a smartwatch, I guess.
There it is. All right, guys. Until next time, ZP002 out.